Please be upstanding for the Worshipful Deputy Mayor of Gedling.
I get the big chair tonight. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We've received notification that former councillor Gillian Fullwood, who stood for the Bonington ward, has sadly passed away. Please remain standing for a minute's silence. Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. Please be seated. Before we proceed, can I ask if any members would wish to make any comment about former councillor Gillian Fullwood before we continue? No? Okay, so I'll just... Councillor Adams.
Thank you. Yes, she was a member of our group and stood in the Bonington ward, like you've rightly said. And we'd just all like to pass our condolences on to her friends and family and thank you for her service to the residents of the Bonington ward as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Adams. Okay, so we'll move on now, and I'm going to ask the Mayor's Chaplain, Father Philip, who is attending this meeting, to now read his thoughts of the day. Thank you.
Well, dear friends, Angelo Roncalli wrote a very beautiful letter, Peace on Earth, and in it he wrote, "A civic society is to be considered well-ordered, beneficial, and in keeping with human dignity, if grounded in truth. As Paul exhorts us, away with falsehood, let everyone speak out the truth to his neighbour. Membership of the body binds us to one another. This will be accomplished when each one duly recognises both his rights and obligations toward others. Human society will be such as we have described it, if the citizens, guided by justice, apply themselves seriously to respecting the rights of others and discharging their duties. And if we're moved by such fervour of charity as to make our own the needs of others and share with others our own goods. And if finally we work for a closer fellowship in a world of spiritual values. Yet this is not sufficient, for human society is bound together by freedom, and that is to say in ways and means, in keeping with the dignity of its citizens, who accept the responsibility of their actions precisely because by nature, we're rational beings. And so let us pray. May we serve the common good in valuing all peoples, and especially the poor and the vulnerable who need our support. May service be our guiding principle. May the source of our dialogue be wisdom, filled with energy, imagination, and vision to express through our skills a renewed vision, understanding, and integrity of our citizenship. May our minds and hearts be used to love and serve one another as Jesus taught, that in the power of the Spirit, justice and peace will embrace. We make our prayer through Jesus Christ, our Lord.
Thank you very much, Father Philip. We'll now move on to apologies. Can I ask the relevant members to confirm if we have any apologies, please? Councillor Rachel Ellis for the Labour Group.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. We have apologies from Councillors Michelle Welsh and Michael Payne. They're on parliamentary duties. We also have apologies from Councillors Linda Pearson, Ron McCrossan, Viv McCrossan, Alex Scroggy and Catherine Fox. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ellis. Councillor Sam Smith on behalf of the Conservative Group.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Apologies from Councillor Martin Smith.
Thank you.
And Lorraine Brown, sorry.
Okay. And Councillor Hughes on behalf of the Liberal Democrat Group.
Apologies from Councillor Towsey Hinton, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I can see that we've got our independent member here, so no apologies there. Thank you. I'm now going to move on to the Mayor's announcements, and I want to take this opportunity to firstly pass on our condolences to the Mayor and Consort on the loss of a close family member. Our thoughts and prayers are with them, and I have passed on our deepest sympathies at this sad time. The Mayor and I have attended a number of events since the last full council meeting, and there's just a few I wanted to highlight. I know the Mayor was very grateful to the Good Shepherd Church for hosting the Mayor's Christmas Carol service, which raised significant funds for the Mayor's charities. Particular thanks go to Father Philip, Sarah Benedict and Katie Wilson, who made the evening very special alongside other volunteers, and not forgetting the fantastic performances by the choir and soloists at the church. It was particularly special that the council hosted the French delegation from Gedling's twin town, Vendeuve, just before Christmas. The Mayor and Councillor Viv McCrossan worked particularly hard to make sure that this visit was an outstanding success, taking the delegation to attend various community groups and activities across the borough, and to also hold meetings here at the council to celebrate the special link that we have had with the French town for many years. I know that the delegation were particularly pleased to attend the Mayor's Carol concert and were very touched by the nods in the service to French culture and life. I was also honoured as Deputy Mayor to join the Honorary Alderman's John Parr for the annual Arnold Toy Run before Christmas, which he has run for over 17 years. Hundreds of toys were donated by local people, organisations and businesses to bring some cheer and joy to those with limited means, especially at a time of year that can be crippling for family finances. I was happy to judge the best decorated bike, but I stopped short of getting on the bike because, knowing my luck, my roads would get trapped and the wheels would probably end up meaning I would be on the floor. On a serious note, though, we're blessed in Gedling to have such a fantastic community full of groups and organisations doing special things for residents all year round. And to them all, we say thank you. We'll now move on to item 4, and that is to approve the minutes of the meetings held on the 18th of September and the 13th of November. Can I ask Councillor Clark to move and Councillor Hollingsworth to second?
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I'll move those.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just before I second, can I offer a belated congratulations to Councillor Smith on his election to Nottinghamshire County Council, the youngest elected leader of the council, as I understand it. And I just think it's so nice when us younger people are given the opportunity to serve at leadership level. I'm happy to second, Mr Mayor.
So all those in favour, please show. Thank you very much. Are there anyone against? And are there any abstentions? Thank you, members. Thank you, that is carried. Item 5, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? Thank you. I will move on to the next item. Item 6, petitions under procedural rule 7.8. It's been confirmed there isn't any. Mike?
They were none received, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Item 7 then we'll move on to questions asked by the public under Procedural Rule 7.7. Mike.
Mr Deputy Mayor, we have received 2 questions from members of the public. One which is in attendance to ask their question, which is the first one. Yes, can Matthew Francis ask his question, please?
Gedling Borough Council's annual financial operating budget is approximately £12.6 million. In a cost of living crisis where residents of Gedling Borough are being asked to pay more and more council tax every year, and you will also now be charging residents and other visitors to park their vehicles at Gedling Country Park, the allocation of salaries of the senior leadership team, which includes executives, directors and assistant directors, accounts for approximately £1 million of that financial budget. Would the Chairman of the Audit Committee and the Deputy Mayor please take time to explain to residents why such a state of affairs exhibits a sense of fiduciary responsibility? Thank you.
As I'm Chair of the Audit Committee, I will answer the question. Thank you for your question. All successful businesses require senior managers who can provide leadership at a strategic level to steer the organisation into meeting its agreed targets, aims and objectives. In these difficult financial times for local government, all councils require the skills of professional leaders to not only meet the challenges ahead, but also to continue to push the council in improving public services. Gedling Borough Council is no exception. The gross budget for 2024-25 is actually 44.1 million and not the 12.6 million you quote. And organisations of this size require appropriate management at a senior level. The Audit Committee is committed to carrying out its role of scrutinising the Council's finances, ensuring value for money and holding the organisation to account. The Committee will continue to review areas of expenditure to ensure that public funds are spent responsibly and in the best interests of the residents of Gedling Borough. During my time as Chair, the Audit Committee and I have overseen the recruitment of an independent member to the Committee who is separate from the councillors to add an extra layer of scrutiny. Not all councils have adopted this approach, but we welcome transparency and openness. Thank you. We will now move on to the next question. Mike?
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. The second question from a member of the public is as follows. Given the importance of the Greater Carlton Town Board, given the importance the Greater Carlton Town Board will have in bringing economic growth to the wider Carlton area, and given the Chair of the Board, according to the minutes from Tuesday the 22nd of October 2024, that it is reported to have stressed the importance of members' attendance at the meeting, will the Leader of Council write to the MP for Gedling noting the following? Firstly, encouraging the MP to attend more of the meetings of this board and stress the importance of the board in delivering for Carlton residents. And secondly, express the council's dissatisfaction the MP has only attended one of the 5 meetings, and the one he did attend he was late to. This is correct as of the publicly available minutes as of 9th of December 2024.
Thank you, Mike. Can I ask Councillor Clark to answer the question, please?
Thanks, Mr Deputy Mayor, and to the member of the public, whoever he or she is. Here goes the answer. I know from discussions both myself and Chief Executive had with our Member of Parliament for Gedling that he entirely understands the importance of the Greater Nottingham Carlton Town Board in delivering for Carlton residents and indeed residents right across the borough. Our Member of Parliament for Gedling has been fully engaged, involved and supportive of the work of the Greater Carlton Town Board. Right from the moment of his election in July, he was lobbying government ministers hard to ensure this incoming government gave a commitment to the future of long-term plan for towns funding for the wider Carlton area in the government's October budget. This lobbying by our Member of Parliament, Michael Payne MP, was particularly important considering the fact that the previous Conservative government had made underfunded spending pledges in the lead up to the general election. The Greater Carlton Town Board would not have been able to fill its primary purpose if our Member of Parliament, supported by members of the board, had not made concerted efforts between July and October 2024 to secure a commitment from the government for long-term plan for towns funding for the wider Carlton area. I can confirm that the Member of Parliament has remained in close contact with both me and the Chief Executive of the Council about this matter, and I am aware he's read with interest and in full all the documentation in relation to the Greater Carlton Town Board. Our Member of Parliament has attended 2 Greater Carlton Town Board meetings and on occasions where personal or parliamentary work committed have precluded him from attending. He has always recorded his apologies. I am aware one of the meetings he was unable to attend was as a result of the meeting being an in-person attendance only meeting, which clashed with the day he was being sworn in as our Member of Parliament in the House of Commons. The Chair of the Board has since, at the Member of Parliament's request, made arrangements for the meetings to be held in a hybrid format, and that will be on a Friday. I once again thank the Member of Public for their question, but can assure them they need not be unnecessarily concerned. Our Member of Parliament will continue to be fully supportive, engaged and involved with the Greater Carlton Town Board's work, and as per the official guidance from the Government Department, will be individually involved in reviewing the Board's long-term plan prior to submission. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. I will now move on to the next item. So we'll now move on to item 8, questions asked by members under Procedural Rule 7.9. We've received 2 questions from members. Councillor Elwood, please ask your question.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. In view of the removal of hedgerows in March 2023 at the boundary of the Chase Farm developments on Arnold Lane, opposite Stanhope Road, in contravention of Condition 4 of Planning Application 2021-1294, what actions have the Planning Department at the Borough Council taken to ensure that the removed hedgerows are replaced? Thank you.
Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, and thank you for the question, Councillor Elwood. I'm very grateful to officers who visited the site to assess the extent of the hedge removal and ensure that the sections removed correspond to the approved access points which serve the development. Condition 4 of reserved matters, approval reference 2021/1294, does require the submission of approval of a scheme of landscaping, and these details have been considered through the discharge of condition application under reference 2022/1046, which has been approved. The hedgerow removals were approved to facilitate development, and therefore no replacement planting is required. Mr. Deputy Mayor, if Councillor Elwood would like further information, I know that officers will be very happy to provide.
Thank you, Councillor Hollingsworth. Councillor Elwood, would you like to ask a supplementary question?
No, thank you. That's fine. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hughes, please ask your question.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. The government published its devolution white paper in December proposing that a system of unitary authorities be established across the whole of England. Can the leader please let us know what stance the council will adopt in response to the probable abolition of Gedling Borough Council if this top-down local government reorganisation, as outlined in the white paper, is enacted? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Hughes for the question. Government's white paper on devolution was published on the 16th of December 2024. This invited all authorities in 2-tier areas and small neighbouring unitary councils to work together to submit plans for reorganisation. For most areas, this will mean creating councils with a population of 500,000 or more. Interim plans must be submitted by March 2025, and these will include a number of options that will be worked upon further during the summer. It is important to note that the Secretary of State has powers to determine a solution, irrespective of whether any individual council objects to the white paper proposals. I think I'll read that again. It's important to note that the Secretary of State has powers to determine a solution, irrespective of any individual council objects to the white paper. The approach by all Nottinghamshire leaders is to discuss and agree core values and principles to guide how we work together. This means that over the next 9 weeks to the end of March, all leaders need to get viable options on the table which are not necessarily preferred options. I will always stand up for Gedling Borough Council to remain it as it currently is, and when consultation is launched, I would encourage all residents to respond and share their views. However, if that is not possible under legislation, then I would rather be part of the solution as opposed to being forced to accept a new structure under Secretary of State.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Hughes, would you like to ask a supplementary question?
Yes, please, Mr Deputy Mayor. Would the leader commit to consulting opposition groups when formulating this council's response?
Councillor Clark.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Hughes. You can bet I will. And the entire council will be involved, and we want everybody working on it. And we're fortunate because now we've got Sam, who's the leader of the county council, will help, and so we've got a good lobby in there. But yes, definitely, it's such an important decision for this council. If you remember, in the past, we've fought this off twice, I think it is, in the last 30 years, where people are going to take us into the city. And if you also remember the crazy situation last time where splitting bits off, that was bits of Netherfield, bits of Burton Joyce, bits of Arnold Centre, and if you remember one side of Arnold, Front Street, was being divided. So I think it was left-hand side, Asda side, that was going into the city. The right-hand side was staying in the county, and the same in Carlton, the same in other areas. No, we'll fight this vigorously, and hopefully we can get the outcome that we wish for the people. I've certainly canvassed many people, Mr Deputy Mayor, and they're, it's not a nasty towards the city. They do not want to belong to the city. They want to belong to Gedling. There may be, I could say the words, but I'm not going to say it in here. We may have a problem sometimes to people out there, but it's our problem. They feel confident that local people, irrespective of party politics, can actually get involved and represent them. So yes, everybody there, Councillor Hughes, will be involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. I will move on to the next item. So now we move to item 9, reports and recommendations from the Executive or Committee Procedural Rule 7.10. There are 3 reports and we'll take them in turn. So we've got 9A, the Pay Policy Statement 2025-26, and the recommendation is on page 29. I'm going to ask Councillor Clark to move and Councillor Hollingsworth to second, please.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I'll formally move.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I'll second.
Thank you. Would anyone now like to speak on this item? Okay. Councillor Clark to close then, please.
Nothing to say, just go with the recommendations, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Okay, we'll move to the vote then. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. That is carried. We now move to 9B, Budget Monitoring and Environment Report, August to November 2024. The recommendation is on page 99. Can I ask Councillor Clark to move and Councillor Hollingsworth to second, please?
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I formally move.
Seconded, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Would anyone like to speak on this item? No? Okay, so we'll move to Councillor Clark to close, please.
Move to the vote, Mr Mayor. Deputy Mayor.
All those in favour, please show. Thank you. Anyone against? And any abstentions? So we'll now move on then to, that is carried, and we'll move on to item 9C, the Prudential Code Indicator Monitoring 2024-25 and Treasury Activity Report for the period ended the 30th of November 2024. The recommendation is on page 125. Again, can I ask Councillor Clark to move and Councillor Hollingsworth to second, please?
I'll move the recommendation on page 125, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Seconded, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Would anyone like to speak on this item? No? Okay. Councillor Clark to close,
I'll move
please.
to the vote. Thank you.
We'll move to the vote then. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. Anyone against? And any abstentions? Thank you. That is carried. We'll now move to item 10, approval of the new contract and procurement rules. The recommendation is on page 141. Councillor Clark to move and Councillor Hollingsworth to second, please.
Move, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Seconded, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Would anyone like to speak on this item before we move forward? No? We'll move to the vote then. No, we won't. We'll ask Councillor Clark to close first.
Yeah, move to the vote. Thank you.
Getting through these. We'll move to the vote then. So all those in favour, please show. Thank you. Anyone against? And any abstentions? Thank you very much, everyone. That is carried. We'll now move on to item 11, which is the Council Tax Reduction Scheme. The recommendations are on page 167. Councillor Clark to move and Councillor Hollingsworth to second, please.
I'll move the recommendation, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Councillor.
Seconded, Mr Deputy Mayor. Reserve the right to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone like to speak on this item? Councillor Russell-Whiting.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Can I just take this opportunity to congratulate Councillor Clark and the administration and the council on being able to continue to run this scheme. I know I've got many residents in Colwick who benefit from it, and I'm sure we all have in our wards. So thank you very much, and I'm delighted that this can continue.
Thank you, Councillor Whiting. Any other comments? Okay. Councillor Clark to close, please.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Deputy Mayor. I mean, you've done it this year, but I don't know. It depends on what money we get year in, year out, really, as to whether we can continue to do this. So it may be that next year or the year after we reluctantly have to reduce some of it, but we'll have to wait until we get the figures from government.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. So we'll move to the vote on this report then. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. Anyone against? And any abstentions? No? Thank you very much. That item is carried. We'll move on to the next item. So we'll now move on to item 12, which is park bylaws. The recommendation is on page 181. Councillor Hollingsworth to move and Councillor Clark to second, please.
Very happy to move the recommendation. Provides approval to carry out a community consultation on the revised draft bylaws for parks and open spaces within Gedling Borough and the revocation of existing 96 bylaws. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Clark.
Yeah, second the recommendations, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Okay, so we'll now move to an opportunity. Does any members wish to speak on this item? No, thank you very much. Then, can Councillor Hollingsworth please close, please?
Move to the vote. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll now move to the vote. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. Anyone against? And any abstentions? No? Thank you very much then. That item is carried. We'll move on now to item 13. This is the Independent Remuneration Panel report and recommendations for 2025 to 2026. The recommendation is on page 241. Will Councillor Clark please move and Councillor Hollingsworth please second?
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Yes, I'll move the recommendation in, saying that we'll thank the independent panel for their recommendation for its work and accepts in part recommendation 1 of the Independent Remuneration Panel report, which aligns with commitment made last year to increase basic allowance in line with Chief Officer Pay Award. 3, agrees to continue to apply the Chief Officer Pay Award as a form of indexation to special responsibility allowances, as agreed in previous years. Accepts a recommendation 2 of the Independent Remuneration Panel report. Does not accept the Independent Remunerations Panel recommendation number 3 as contained in this report. Agrees to schedule allowances for 25-26 as attached in Appendix 2 to this report be uprated in accordance with the Chief Officer Pay Award as agreed. Authorise the monitoring officer to make the appropriate amendments to Section 29 of the Constitution to reflect any changes to the members' allowance scheme. Agreed. And move that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we're actually replacing the recommendations with a new one, which I think is going to be circulated. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So an amendment has been handed out, as read out by Councillor Clark. I'm still going to give an opportunity to for members to speak on this. So if anyone would like to speak, please let me know now. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just to thank the panel for their work and thank Councillor Clark. I hope it didn't get you in trouble saying that we had a phone call on this. Apologies if it does. But thank Councillor Clark for the conversation we had earlier this week and fully endorse the recommendations that have been printed out. Thank you.
Councillor Elwood.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Only just looked at the, obviously only just seen this, but I'm assuming it relates to the SRAs for the business managers, which is in the remuneration panel's recommendations. That's removed from the allowance scheme. I think we should respect the remuneration panel's recommendations in full. By going against their recommendations, we're lessening the standing and the authority of the panel in this council. The review that the panel undertakes involves an in-depth benchmarking process, looking at other councils in Nottinghamshire. This shows that no other district council pays for business managers. I'm not quite sure why Gedling Council is so special in having these allowances. The sky hasn't fallen in at the other district councils where they don't have SRAs for business managers. And I would much prefer the taxpayers' money spent on these allowances to go to services for the direct benefits of residents of this borough. So on those grounds, we'll be voting against this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Elwood. Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, and thank you for the comments, Councillor Elwood. But just to say, because we disagree with the recommendation of the independent panel, does not mean that we are being disrespectful. It's just that we're taking a different view. We've always held the view that the business managers play a really important role in the smooth running of the council. They ensure that political balance on committees is continued. They make sure that they're quorate and they can run efficiently. They make sure that members are substituted so that meetings don't have to be cancelled. So in that case, we are going to continue to pay that remuneration. Thank you.
Any other comments from members? Okay, so we'll move to Councillor Clark to close.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Deputy Mayor. And that's pretty in line with what Andrew has been saying for many years. I don't believe that. I think that the independent panel have missed a golden chance as well, because they should start looking now, and I don't know actually who is on the independent panel now. I don't know whether anybody's actually served as a member in an authority, making judgments on councillors who are working hard. I find that a little strange, but that's the way the system is. But I also think they should look, I don't know if there's any way we can do this, send this back, I'll probably have to send it to government, is to ask them to start looking, where is the cover for members? We were here for COVID, we're here for flooding, we're here for every other thing that goes off, and yet we're disrespected when it comes down to doing this job. This job now, and I'm sure Sam's finding it at county, is nigh on 24/7. It comes at you when we close here on a Friday night, my phone will go at 5:05. You know, it's that type of thing, and it's constant. And I do think if we're going to attract other people in, Mr Mayor, Deputy Mayor, then we should get, these people should look at it and start putting some recommendations to government to say, recognise the strength that you've got across the political spectrum, across the country, and the effort and the time and the personal sacrifice of those people. It does need rewarding at some point. Thank you.
So thank you for closing on the amendment, Councillor Clark. We need to vote on that first before we move to the final recommendations. So with the amendment, all those in favour, please show. All those against? And any abstentions? Okay, so that amendment is carried. We'll now move to the final recommendations with the amendment. Councillor Clark to close.
Nothing to say now, ma'am.
So we'll move to the vote for all recommendations with the amendment. All those in favour? Anyone against? And any abstentions? Okay, thank you. Those recommendations are carried. We'll move now on to item 14, the appointment to outside bodies. The recommendations on page 257. Councillor Clark to move and Councillor Hollingsworth to second, please.
Move, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Seconder, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Would any members like to speak on this item? No? We'll move then to Councillor Clark to close, please.
Move to the vote.
So we'll now move to the vote. All those in favour, please show. Anyone against? And any abstentions? These are recorded. Thank you very much. So that item has carried. We'll now move on to item 15, comments under procedural rule 7.11. There are 11 sets of minutes on this agenda. If any member would like to ask a question or make a comment about any of the minutes, would you please indicate to the page number that you are speaking about. The first set of minutes is A to F. Any comments or questions? No? Thank you. Then we'll move on to the next set of minutes, which is G to K. Any comments or questions? None. Okay, thank you very much, members. I will now move on to the next item. Item 16, motions under procedural rule 7.12. 12. There is one motion, and this is at the front of the agenda pack. Can I now ask Councillor Adams to propose the motion, please?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yes, I formally propose this motion. I want to take you on a little history lesson, if I may. There was a public hearing held in October 2018, which was the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse, which prompted me back in 2019 to raise a motion. The motion actually that you have sat right in front of you today. My preamble to that motion is as follows. The recent reports, which was highly critical of the City and County Council for failing to look after people in their care, as a result, allegations were made by former children in the care of those councils and employees who were there to protect vulnerable people. In light of this, safeguarding is correctly top of the agenda, and therefore, my fellow councillors, we should set a grade A example to not only fulfil our role with staff who may have contact with vulnerable residents, but also as councillors, we should set an example. We cannot have one rule for the residents and one rule for us. We should ourselves insist that all elected members go through a standard DBS check, I said at the time, on that basis. The change to that motion, let me just read that out from its... The motion is as follows. We, the Council, recognise that the safety of staff, fellow councillors and residents alike currently is not completely represented within this chamber. As a result of this, we would like to see all of the 23 to 27 intake of councillors and all in future to undergo an enhanced DBS check. The councillors, that's the change, it's the enhanced DBS part. The councillors will be required to present the DBS information to the monitoring officer and business manager of their group as applicable within 72 days of the motion, and for future councils within 72 days of their election to this council. The cost will be met by the council. This will not only ensure better transparency, but also ensure that any risk of harm or untoward behaviour is minimised. With the recent national discussions around the rape gangs that have been happening up and down the UK, on top of some local issues, and I'm not going to give anybody any fame in this chamber about that. This is something we have to do. We should have done it in 2019. For whatever reason, it wasn't voted for by the lead group, and sadly, the motion did not go any further. So I would ask you all to think more about where we are and maybe where we could prevent ourselves from getting in the future if we ensure that this work's done, and we make sure that every councillor that's ever going to go out and potentially spend any time with any children or anybody vulnerable has been checked to ensure they have no previous criminal convictions that would bar them from being in the presence of children. This is incredibly important, and we need to make sure that we are doing that for the safety of the children and vulnerable people within our borough. So please, please, please vote for this today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Councillor Smith to second, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Formally second and reserve the right to speak.
Okay, would anyone like to speak on this item? Councillor David Ellis.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I've got an amendment, which I'd like to be circulated, please.
Okay, the amendment will be circulated. Thank you, Councillor Ellis.
Unbelievable.
Councillor Smith.
Could I just ask for an adjournment, 10 minutes?
Sorry, Councillor Ellis.
Don't I move it first and then adjourn?
Yeah, okay.
Needs to be seconded.
Yeah. Councillor Ellis, do you want to move the recommendation, the amendment?
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Nobody can disagree with the sentiment that we are responsible, as we are in law, for safeguarding, and that we ought to do whatever we can to make sure that the way we operate is consistent with safeguarding, and that everybody we come across feels welcome and safe. So there's no disagreement with that. The proposal for a DBS check raises issues in terms of procedures and policies, which I feel needs greater consideration. The ICSA report, which Councillor Adams mentioned, led to an independent review by Simon Bailey of the disclosure and barring regime. And there was subsequently a letter from the then Minister for Local Authority, 18th of January last year, so obviously Conservative Minister, recommending that enhanced checks are mandatory for councils in unitary and upper tier authorities, but not necessarily for lower tier authorities. So I think this is something that we need to give some more thought to. The amendment doesn't alter the sense of the motion. It proposes to delete the 72-day time limit in the third paragraph and refer the matter to Standards Committee to give it some sensible consideration and come back with a report to Council. It seems that Standards is a sensible way to do this, as it's a balanced committee of the Council and includes external representatives. So I'd move the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you for moving the amendment, Councillor Ellis. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Ellis, thank you. We'll now then, Councillor Smith, you've just asked to speak. Was that for an adjournment?
Yes, please, Deputy Mayor.
Are members happy to accept a 10-minute adjournment to allow the other group to look at the... I need a seconder for that. Councillor Adams, everyone's in favour? Thank you. Okay, we'll have a 10-minute adjournment. Thanks, members. Okay, members, we'll return to the meeting now. Everyone ready? So I now allow members to speak on the amendment that's been proposed by David Ellis. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll try and keep calm on this. I'm quite disappointed at the amendment, if I'm honest. It's got rid of the requirement for councillors to have DBS checks to the word, and I quote, would like. What a disgrace. What an absolute disgrace of an amendment that is. And to use the excuse of why we can't vote on it tonight as procedure and policy issues. Are we really, seriously, going to vote against or for an amendment that waters down the requirement for all councillors to have DBS checks based on the fact that it will cause procedure and policy issues? Procedure and policy issues over the protection of children and vulnerable adults. That's what, if you vote for this amendment, you're voting for procedure and policy issues over the protection of the children and vulnerable adults across our borough. Let's not disgrace ourselves, really, come on. The council today, all of us, right now, have the power to vote to ensure and require that all councillors have DBS checks. We all go to school fetes, we all volunteer at coffee mornings and all sorts of things. You know, we're out when it's flooding in people's houses, helping them. We're interacting with these people every day, as we should, because we represent them. And this amendment is saying we would like people to be signed off or have a certificate that says they're good citizens of the borough and that they are safe to interact with these people. We would like. What happens if the person who's elected doesn't like to do the DBS check and has previous convictions? And you're all right, are you, with those people interacting with members of our borough, residents of our borough, with those unknowns? It's an absolute, utter disgrace, and I'm really sad to see the amendment, because we're not daft. It's a numbers game, politics. You'll get it through and you'll kick it into the long grass on the basis of it might impact procedure and policy. Procedure and policy over the protection of children and vulnerable adults. Shame on anybody who votes for this amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Ellis mentioned that it was only a requirement of a upper tier authority to have these DBS checks, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't or that we can't have those DBS checks. We do have the power in this chamber tonight to provide as much safety as possible to every resident of Gedling Borough. And the longer we delay, the more at risk they are. And a DBS check is an important part of our civic society these days. I don't know how many people in the chamber here are school governors. I am. I have to have a DBS check. I'm a trustee of a charity that helps vulnerable older citizens. I have to have a DBS check. I have colleagues who run sports clubs. They have to have DBS checks. You know, it's a basic minimum requirement. And to hide behind procedure and policy, I think shames the chamber. So I hope you can all take that on board and vote for the original motion tonight.
Councillor Maltby.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. Echoing Councillor Smith, I am astounded and absolutely ashamed that this amendment would want to water down what is a straightforward yes or no. Do we want to safeguard the people of this borough? My predecessor, I would not let him in my house to look after my kids, and I hope none of you would. If we have a DBS, we can try and minimise the risk of that happening. I was actually abused as a child. I was a victim of child molestation and rape. Didn't have DBS checks then. We have them now. Let's do the right thing. Let's put our citizens first. Let's put the residents of Gedling first and vote yes for the original amendment and no for the Labour movement amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Catherine Pope.
Thank you. I'd like to speak in favour of the amendment. I think far from has been suggested, it actually strengthens what was proposed in the original motion. And interestingly, it's the original motion that talks about we would like, not the amendment. I think it's really important that in undertaking DBS checks, we're clear what happens if they actually raise any matter for concern. I, like other councillors, have had enhanced DBS checks for different roles, and these were always supported by very clear policies about what would happen if something came up. And therefore, I think it's really important that rather than just vote for something because we feel it will look good, we're actually really clear about what would happen as a result of undertaking any checks. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pope. I've got a number of speakers. 1 second. Councillor Whiting first.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. I'm slightly torn because I'm very sympathetic to the amendment, but I also support the original motion. Can I, first of all, thank Councillor Maltby for sharing that, that's not easy to say. So solidarity to you, Councillor Maltby, for your experiences. DBS checks are very good. Enhanced DBS checks are very good. I myself, like Councillor Bestwick, have had one as a school governor, another one because I volunteer at my church in the kids' work. They don't pick up what's not there. I know that's an obvious thing to say. So the person who we've all got in our minds, who is clearly an evil, depraved person, would have passed a DBS check. So that's the first thing that we need to say. The DBS check is not perfect and it's not a silver bullet. And I don't think there's anything in the Labour amendment that would stop any member of this council going away and getting their own enhanced DBS check and presenting it to the monitoring officer or to the chief exec and to their group members. And I will certainly commit tonight to doing that. And I'll pay for it myself because I don't think the taxpayers should have to pay for it. But I think there are a number of questions that we need to think about, and whether that's the Standards Committee or something else, or whether it needs to delay this, I'm not sure. But as Councillor Pope just said, is there going to be a threshold for what's acceptable in a DBS check and what's not? Because there are some things that come back in a DBS check that don't preclude you from working with vulnerable adults or children, and some things that do. What action would the council take? What action can we take? Are we allowed to disqualify people from being a councillor if they fail a DBS check? Are we allowed to disqualify people if they refuse to take one? Or, the DBS system sometimes is a bit like the passport office. It can take a couple of weeks or it can take a few months. So I'm not sure about that way of working it. Would we expect the parish councils in the borough to do the same thing? Because very soon you're talking about a lot of process, a lot of administration, etc. I don't think the taxpayers should be paying. In an ideal world, we would present these before standing, and then you could root out people before standing. But I know that's probably not possible or financially viable. But I think we should pay for our own. We do get some allowances, and this is not a huge amount of money. But also, what would the council do with the information? I don't think we'd be allowed to publicise it, because that would probably be a breach of GDPR. So I think that would probably be need to look at. So there are serious questions, and I think it does need serious consideration. But obviously, I'm not opposed to the spirit of the original motion. And as I say, I will certainly be getting my DBS check, because this is something that myself and forgive me, I forget the Conservative who represents the single member ward, but we can't do things with other people. Everyone else, you can take someone along with you, so you're not alone with people. The two of us who are in single wards, I do a surgery every month in Collet Community Centre and sit there by myself, which is probably a safeguarding issue both ways. But that's the way it is in a single member ward. So yes, I completely support the motion. There are questions that are raised. Whether that needs to delay or not, I'm not sure, but I'm not sure where that gets us, Mr. Deputy Mayor, but I think these are complicated matters beyond the simplistic yes or no.
Thank you, Councillor Whiting. Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. May I first preface my remarks by saying that I have no personal objection to having an enhanced DBS check. I already have an enhanced DBS certificate because I work on a voluntary basis with small children. Having that enhanced check is obviously relevant to my role as a literacy volunteer and indeed is a statutory requirement. But the original motion raises a lot of questions. It's very simplistic, but it raises a lot of questions which have already been referred to by the previous speaker. They're not, which are not addressed. What does the council do with the information? In particular, what would happen should the check reveal something for one of us, perhaps a relatively minor offence committed many years ago? The original motion does talk about greater transparency, so presumably their intention is for this information to be published on the council's website. Yet that is going to be an infringement of privacy and almost certainly will be in breach of GDPR regulations. So a decision needs to be taken as to what, in the hopefully unlikely event of anything being revealed, what the council would do. And so in my opinion, it makes perfect sense to refer this to the Standards Committee, who can determine how these checks should be applied, what the procedure should be, how this information should be recorded, and what would happen in the event of anything being revealed. So we will be voting for the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. I now move on to Councillor Rachel Ellis.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I have sympathy with all the speakers from the Conservative group and how they feel about this. But I do endorse what has been said by Councillor Pope, Councillor Whiting, Councillor Hughes. Personally, absolutely no problems with DBS check. I have had an enhanced DBS and before that CRB check throughout all my professional life. I think we have to be clear what a DBS check can and can't do. It is essentially a snapshot of the convictions that someone may have at any particular time. Now, we're talking about an enhanced DBS check, so we are talking about someone's convictions, and that includes any that might be spent throughout someone's lifetime, all the way back, including youth convictions. It includes cautions. It also includes what one might call police intelligence. So you can see that it does involve disclosing highly sensitive information. As such, we do have to consider to what end are we requesting this sensitive information and how is it going to be used. My view is that a DBS check must be part of a well-considered safeguarding policy and procedure. We shouldn't just dive into it without carefully considering, do we need it? And if so, how is it going to be used? I would also add, because I did look it up before coming here, that the data from the Ministry of Justice in February 24 indicates that 27% of working age adults have a criminal conviction. And this increases, by the way, to 33% when you're just looking at men. So, you know, there's a high probability that there will be something disclosed on a DBS which may or may not be relevant, which has been mentioned before, in terms of whether it has to be considered under safeguarding procedures, but it will be disclosed. And therefore, I think it's entirely right and proper that we consider how DBS checks fit into our safeguarding policy and procedure before we go ahead and decide exactly what we're going to do. And we do need to understand why we're doing it. So on that basis, therefore, I support the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Ellis. Councillor Strong.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Like others, I've no objection to having a DBS check. In fact, my last one only expired just before the election, the local elections, which is very handy. I also, in the past, have been part of a group where drawing up safeguarding procedure. And I can only echo what Councillor Ellis said about the things you have to take into account. And that includes the storage of data, perhaps appointing a safeguarding officer who has sole access to all the data. So it's not just, you can't just have a knee-jerk reaction like, we must have DBS checks. There are other implications, there are other complications. Do you allow people who've got a conviction for shoplifting when they were 15 to be a member or to work with children? Having taken part in drawing up procedures, I know that you've got to take so many things into consideration, and if you don't try and be as complete as you can end up with something that's worse than having none at all, because it doesn't work. And all you've got is a piece of paper it says DBS on it. That's all you've got. It's what's happened before. So I would support the amendment, and I think consideration to take into account all possible complications, which will never be 100%, but at least it's better than just having a knee-jerk reaction and bringing in a total ban or anything else draconian that is just not suitable for a council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Strong. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I support the original motion. I will talk about the amendment, but I think the amendment dilutes what we're about. We've got to realise the difference between an enhanced DBS and a DBS check. What we're looking for is an enhanced DBS for all members and those that are co-opted onto Standards Committee. That's why tonight we could actually pass this motion. An enhanced DBS just picks up those that any offences that you're working around children, anything like that in your history. And I'm sure, like many colleagues have said tonight, I have a DBS with the church, one with the RFU, so I can referee children's rugby. And as a school governor, there's nothing to worry about. We're just trying to pass this motion. So a DBS, a simple check on all members, and I think I'd like to commend my colleague, Councillor Maltby. How brave was he to speak tonight, and we don't want to repeat that, do we? We don't. We're all there in our communities. We go into people's houses. We go, and it's just we fair enough. We should all be chaperoned, but it covers ourselves as well, doesn't it? It covers us. It's insurance for us. So totally back that motion. So let's support the original motion, and I really do support. I think Councillor Adams bought it before this council a year ago, and it got kicked down the road. 2019, he bought this motion. And for Councillor Smith to second it, I think they should be commended. What is wrong? What's the difference between this council and the county council? We have one at the county council, so let's just have one here. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Feeney.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. with this issue, Gedling doesn't want to go on its own, really. It's a major issue that could, if Gedling took it on, it could have implications throughout the country and every other district council and parish council. So I think it should actually be recommended to the Local Government Association. So no matter where you are, that's what their role is, that their standards are kept up and down the country. I think Gedling just going on its own could leave us a bit way out and open for abuse. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Feeney. I'm now going to... Are there any other speakers? Does he want to, once the amendment's been closed by the... No. So the advice I've just been given is that we usually ask Councillor Ellis to close the amendment now and then allow Councillor Adams to speak afterwards. Is that
on the amendment?
On the amendment, I think that's acceptable. Councillor Ellis to close.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I'm amazed and disappointed. I honestly thought, when I put this amendment together, that the Conservative group would snap our hands off and would say, yes, that's what we want, let's move it forward. And I thought we could get cross-chamber consensus on this. And I'm just staggered at the reaction. I mean, I thank the members from the Labour group, from the Lib Dems and the independent member for demonstrating why this amendment's needed and why, if we're going to move forward on DBS checks, we need to give it some careful consideration. They've all raised genuine, serious issues which we need to tackle before we implement anything. And the only explanation I can have for the reaction of the Conservative group is it must be an election year. I mean, just picking up some of the issues. Just picking up some of the issues. Councillor Smith is disappointed that the amendment says we would like, because that's lifted straight from his initial motion. There's no change to it. What we've done is proposed to delete the requirement, the paragraph that talks about requirement. There's nothing in this motion that tells me what would happen if somebody refuses to apply for a DBS check. If they don't meet the requirement, would we expect to suspend them from the council? But there's nothing in the motion that stands that tells us that. These are all the things that need thinking through. Councillor Bestwick talks about a number of roles on which he's got a DBS. And I've got an enhanced DBS because of the role that I've got as a governor. And if I'd failed that, I wouldn't have been appointed as a governor. If he's sports coach, he wouldn't have been appointed as sports coach. And I mean, I don't know if Councillor Smith fails his DBS, whether we'd be able to stop him going to these coffee mornings or garden fetes, and who would do that? So it's all these things that need thinking. Councillor Maltby, the DBS would not have picked up the case he's talking about. The individual, as far as I'm aware, had no criminal conviction. The DBS would have not picked that up. So it's not a silver bullet. It's part of an overall picture. Councillor Pope did summarise really the range of issues. The only thing that occurs to me that I'm aware of, I think I don't think you can apply for an enhanced DBS. That has to be an organisation that applies for it. You can't as an individual. You can apply for a basic DBS, but not an enhanced one. And Councillor Whiting was raised issues, and as he says, it's complicated. It's complicated, so we don't want a half-baked motion. We actually want a properly thought-through approach to the issue. As people have said, as Councillor Hughes said, what do we do with the information? You know, somebody comes back with a fails their DBS, comes back with a whole range of issues, and which goes to business manager and the monitoring officer. What do? Can they stop something? As far as I'm aware, you can't disqualify somebody from being a councillor if they fail a DBS. They're the things that we need to give some thought to. This, as I said, this is not intended to dilute the motion. It was intended to achieve cross-party consensus, move forward and achieve something, and not do a half-baked motion. So I ask members to support the amendment, and then, if it's amended, support the amended motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Adams, before we move to the vote.
Thank you. Yes, my watch has just gone off on my wrist because it's confirmed my blood pressure has got a little bit on the high side after listening to that disgraceful representation of why we brought this here today. You've just sat and listened to one of my councillors' testament about what happened to him as a child, and you've sat there and dared say that this is a political issue. You should be absolutely ashamed of yourself, David. Absolutely ashamed of yourself. Well, let's not get on to that. And to confirm, Sam Smith has got an enhanced DBS, as have I, in 3 places, because I coach a young children's sports team, as well as being a school governor, as well as being a county councillor. 3 of them. And guess what? All of those organisations have processes. The councils have processes. Nottinghamshire County Council has a process. I'm giving you 72 days. 72 days to sit around in a little room and come up with an idea of a policy of how we're going to deliver this, when this policy is replicated across the whole nation, across a number of different councillors. 72 days. And you give me policy and procedure. I think what it's testament to is how incredibly poor this is being run. It's incredibly testament to how ineffective the administration that you're a part of is operating as. That you cannot organise a policy in 72 days. And I'm sure the people of Gedling will be absolutely over the moon to hear that you can't come up with a policy in 72 days, David. Your amended motion, Councillor Pope claims does not water it down. There is a paragraph 3 of the original motion, which clearly states the councillors will be required to present the DBS information to the monitoring officer and business manager of their group within 72 days of this motion. Clearly states that. You remove that need out of your motion and you send it off to a committee that effectively could throw the entire thing out. There is not one part. Where's the ownership in here? Where's the ownership of all of you? Where's the bravery of all of you to vote for something that's really important for the protection of children? Where's that bravery? Where is it? I want you to have a little think about that as you escort yourself to your car today, about where is your bravery to protect the children and vulnerable people of this borough? Instead, you want to refer to us to the fact you cannot come up with a policy in 72 days. That's what you want to do. And I cannot believe in 2019 I brought this same motion here. And in 2019 I was told the same thing. We will go away, we will come up with something. We will work with you to come up with something, Councillor Adams. We will do that. We will work with you to do something. We think it's really important. We think it's really important. Guess what's happened in those entire 5 years? Absolutely nothing. Not a sausage. Nothing's changed. Nobody's safer. Nobody's better protected. 5 years. How many, I'm not saying for a second that this DBS procedure could have protected, stopped potentially that person Russell referenced. Again, I'm not getting into the detail of that.
1 minute left, Councillor Adams.
Thank you. The fact that issue with that person, I'm not saying for a second that would have been able to identify that issue. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, Would that person have applied for a position as a councillor? Or would anybody apply for a position of councillor knowing they are going to get a DBS check, knowing that their history is going to be checked? Would they do that on the basis they know that's going to happen if that record was in play? Would they do that? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. I'd hope not. I'd hope they realise that it's not a suitable place for them to be. I would hope that would be what would happen. But sadly, like I said, you've amended this motion to the point where it's put in a little, very small committee who can make a very little, small decision. They could throw it out if they want to, and that could be the end of it. And I'm really sad that you've taken that choice. And I'm really, really, and I know this, you won't care about this, but I'm really disappointed for you. And I tell you what, the children of this borough are disappointed as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll now move to the vote on the amendment, as has been debated on. All those in favour? We've already started the vote now. All those against? And any abstentions? Thank you. So the amendment is carried, and we now move to the substantive motion. So, debate on this, or now I open that up to debate if anyone would like to make any further comments. Councillor Rachel Ellis.
Really, it's just a point of information. One of our colleagues said that a DBS, an enhanced DBS, would simply identify offences against children. That's not correct. It will identify all offences. For example, it might be important to know about offences of dishonesty. Everything is on your enhanced DBS check. And a good thing too, but we have to be aware of what we're doing and why we're doing it. And be aware of the limitations of a DBS too, which is that it's simply a snapshot at one particular point in time. In order for it to work, it has to work in conjunction with strong policy, strong procedures, and good training. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just now that this amendment's become substantive, can we just encourage the Standards Committee to crack on with this as soon as possible, please? We're not needing to reinvent the wheel with meeting after meeting, working group after working group, looking at procedures. As has been highlighted by members on my side and the Labour side, there's football clubs out there, there's councils out there, there's schools out there that all have processes and procedures in place for what you do publish, what you don't publish, and what it means if what restrictions need to be put in place if something comes up on this DBS check. So, you know, let's not make this process long-winded. Let's get it through standards. Let's work with organisations across the borough who already do it and implement it here as soon as possible. That's just a plea. Thank you.
Councillor Clark.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I can reassure you, on the other side, those that are doubting, that this won't be kicked into the long grass. It will be, and I should be pushing all the people on the top bench here that we get this, and get it to the standards and get something back. Because we it's like in politics in a way. We're all trying to get the same goal in a way, but there are different ways to it. And I think this, because successive governments, councils, including our own county council under various administrations, under the city council, under councils across the country, have failed in this. And I think it's now rearing its head, and I hated to see today that they're now looking at some of the atrocities that have happened to some of the children in Rochdale is now all going over again because it wasn't tight enough, it wasn't correct. And I think by doing this and going with the amendment, but I do assure you, Sam, that it won't die on my shift. It's definitely not going to die on it. I want this out, and I want it sorted in a very quick timescale. So, you know, and I think, you know, at the end of the day, we will get something, but law is very strange, isn't it? Very strange. And all sorts of permutations have come up before. Hopefully this will make it clear, and it'll make it clear to anybody that wants to stand for public office. Thank you.
Councillor Maltby.
Hello. I just urge everyone who may be on a working group or looking at this to make this a priority and try and sort this as soon as possible. I'm not doing this to make me look good, Councillor Pope. Far be it from me to do that. I'm not doing this because there's an election, Councillor Ellis. I would never do that. I'm doing this, A, because I'm a victim, and B, it's very topical at the moment. I think all organisations need to be taking this seriously, not just this council. Thank you.
Any other speakers before Councillor Adams closes? Councillor, can we have some order? Just Councillor Adams to close.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yes, Councillor Clark, please please forgive me for not being too excited about your words, having that been said in 2019 as well. Let's just get rid of the words. Let's just get action in play. Less words, more action, please. It's obviously I'm disappointed about the fact we're having to take this another step, and we're going to continue a process. I hope it doesn't exceed what we've requested in this motion in terms of timescale. Let's get this turned around very quickly. Whatever process you need to do, like I've made quite clear in the previous point, there are countless councils that do this across the nation in many different ways. There are football clubs, there are church groups, there are, as Councillor Whiting mentioned, there are many, many different places that do this without needing an elongated process time to write it. Let's use some of that information, that knowledge that's out there already from other councils that are similar to ours. Let's get that process transferred into our council. Let's start looking at that and let's get it done. You're right in what you said about the fact that we have a shared need to ensure the safety of children and adults in here. Let's get it done. Thank you very much.
Before I proceed to the vote, I did see some comments were made during that. And Councillor Pope, did you have anything for information?
Well, I just wanted to make a point of order that I did not say what Councillor Maltby accused me of saying, and I'd like him to watch it back and withdraw that comment. Thank you.
Councillor Maltby, do you withdraw the comment?
I do not withdraw the comment. I will look at the video, but I clearly remember saying that this motion was being brought by this party to make us look good. So I will review the video, and if I'm wrong, I'll be the first to apologise. Thank you.
Thank you. We're now going to move to the vote. All those in favour, please show. Any against? And any abstentions? Okay, that motion is now carried. I want to take this opportunity to thank you and everyone for attending this evening, and this meeting is now closed. Thank you.
Members of the Council and members of the public, please be upstanding for the worshipful, the Deputy Mayor of Gedling.